Congratulations, Sreelatha. Again, you scored a 730 with a V44. How does it feel?
It feels actually great, and it's satisfying in the terms that I don't have to give it again. That's the one thing that when I saw the score, I was like, oh, I don't have to give it again, probably. So that's one thing. It's a relief, actually.
That's one thing that I've actually heard the most, to be very, very honest, that thank God I don't have to give it again. But of course, you don't have to give it again. You've done a very, very good job and you scored a V44, but it's come with its own challenges per se, right?
Yes,
And
yes,
you've had a very interesting journey as well, where you had COVID and you've given the test before this as well. So take me through
yeah.
that journey and how you gave your first GMAT. How did that go? How did you study for it?
Yeah, so actually I started my journey, e-GMAT journey as well, on March 30th or 20th, something of that sort. And I gave my first mock and I was only 5'10". Gave my first diagnostic
So
when I
that's a
was at 5'10".
220
It
point
was,
improvement from your first mock.
yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah. So I was like, okay, I have to buck up. I have to do a lot of things. And I started with your SC and I was going through, but I did not make a particular plan. I kind of followed your personalized study plan wherein they said, okay, 2 weeks for this, 2 weeks for that.
Hmm.
But even so, I didn't do a micromanagement after that. So
Hmm.
like per day, how much should I, cover and how much, and specifically with work and everything, I am a working professional. So it
Yeah.
kind of, you don't have a lot of time to think.
True. True.
So I kind of wasted a lot of time on that, planning and stuff like that, or on a daily basis. That I should not have done, I feel, because that's what I changed in my later attempt.
Hmm.
So the first thing, then I got COVID in April. Almost lost 1.5 months, because my entire family had it. After that, my
Hmm.
sister had it. So it was a long saga for me. Then kind of started back in June, July, and almost forgot everything. June started. June end, forgot everything. To go back to everything, whatever I did with my SC, I had to go back, learn everything up, back again. But I realized that my verbals, I kind of improve a lot faster, even though I'm an engineer,
Hmm.
by profession as well. So that's kind of, an irony there. But it's how I work. So yeah, so I guess maybe just reading through all the contracts and all the things that I have been doing for the past 6 years kind of helped me.
Hmm.
But yeah, so kind of picked it up from there. Again, started SC, but didn't have a lot of time to go through the entire module of CR and RC that you
Okay.
had in your e-GMAT.
Hmm.
So I kind of picked up the negation part statement
Got
part
it.
and would solve few OGs and everything. But even so, the preparation was not really enough for me to do it on the
Hmm.
first go. But still, I managed to score a V38, which was, for me, it was a great thing because I was scoring somewhere around V35, 36-ish in my other mocks other than my GMAT mocks. Actually, my GMAT mocks, e-GMAT mocks, I have no idea why I was doing that bad.
Hmm.
But all my other mocks showed me I was strong on my V and not so strong on my Q because I really hadn't touched my Q. I was being way too overconfident with,
Got it.
uh, yeah. So I kind of neglected it, and I started with OGs for my cones, and I was like, "Oh, this is easy," you know. And then I realized, oh no, this is not so easy when once it gets to a
True.
700, 650 level, 700 level. So, and most of the times I would just make mistakes in terms of partial inferencing, you know, just make mistakes of that sort. And also in terms of, not managing my time. If I don't get a question within 30 seconds, I should be, trying to make an educated guess, but I wouldn't do that. I would still sit and try and solve.
Hmm.
I don't know. It was just some sort of
A lot of people do
problem.
this. They don't let go of
So
questions.
it's just weird. So that was the mentality that I went with in my first GMAT attempt. So there I kind of did not do so great in my Q. Got a Q38 and a V38.
Hmm.
I think I kind of guessed the last 10 questions
Wow.
in 5 minutes.
Okay.
So it was
So clearly,
self-explanatory.
yeah. So what changed after that? Like there was of course, I mean, you scored a 730 after that. What did you do to change things?
So actually, before that, I had a lot more time with respect to the fact that I was working from home.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to go to office. But after this, the lockdowns actually got withdrawn, and I started going to office 100%.
Yeah.
So I really didn't have time. From morning 7 to evening 7, I'm not at home.
Yeah.
So after that, coming back and, I guess it's just the motivation that I had to do it by September. I had to finish it off somehow by September. So I kind of realized that I have a time crunch and I cannot do the same things that I did. I just sat down, analyzed what was going wrong, and I realized it's just micromanagement that I was missing.
Okay.
I did not target properly as to, I'll finish this in a day, and even like hour to hour basis, how much I should cover.
Yeah.
I only have 2 to 3 hours a day to give. So I cannot afford to, be sitting at 1 hour and just thinking about what to do next. So I kind of would always make a note of whatever on a Saturday or a Sunday. I would just sit night. I would make the plan for the entire week as to how much I'm supposed to cover, how much I'm supposed to do that. And I would go by plan. And I would always, what I did was I started off with my verbals first. I started off with my SC. I brushed it again, everything. I had gone through all of your SC course, your master comprehension course. So I kind of brushed through SC again, got a printout of all your summary slides, would go through it on a daily basis in the morning whenever I would get time while going to office. I would do that. So
and
then
did that help
I
you?
would,
Like because at this point you've done the SC course all like twice, thrice.
Yes, twice actually. I had gone through the entire thing twice, almost 2.5 times, because the first time I didn't cover the entire SC. So yeah. So, but it's because, even when you're doing, because you're speaking, right? You're speaking English comes in between. So you always have that lingo issue. When you're speaking with your colleagues or whoever in English, it's just never clean and never grammatically correct. So that kind of creeps in most of the times if you don't keep in touch with the actual this thing. Yeah. So I kind of would always keep in touch with it so that I don't forget what I should be thinking about as like, because due to all of comparisons, like all the micro things that we generally skip in our normal day-to-day conversations. So that's how I kind of would do it. On a daily basis, I would just brush through SC. Then I would solve OG, at least 10 to 15 questions I would solve. Initially, I would write down everything. I would actually use the e-GMAT's well-validated, well-established 3-step approach. So I would just write all of that down. I would write the intended meaning of the author. I would identify the error in the first statement. It would take a lot of time for me. I would not, obviously, this cannot be, when you're writing it down, you cannot. I would probably take 5 to 8 minutes for one question, per question. Initially, I did that for like about 5-6 days, so that it just, it becomes mechanical and, gets imbibed inside so that I don't have to think. Like, I don't want to waste time thinking, because it's just, you have to give it in 1 minute, 30 seconds. So I didn't want to think. I wanted to just, be methodical about it and just get it over with. Because the more time I save for SC is the time I get for CR and RC. SC is, you can be more methodical with SC and, have a 98, 95, 99% accuracy with that.
Yeah.
With CR and RC, you still have to think a little bit more, because you have to, analyze and think a little bit more. Here, I wanted to save that thinking time. So that's how I did it. So first 10-15 questions I would do that. But then after that, once it got imbibed in me, every day I would just I would make a set of 10-15 questions, out of which I would be doing 2-3 easy questions, 3-4 medium questions, and 2-3 harder questions. I would make a set of it, and I would make sure I solve it on a daily basis. And on top of it, I then started with CR. Like once I finished with my SC, brushing through and doing
Yeah.
10 questions, I kind of got into CR as well. So CR, I used a book named Power Scores book, actually, Bible of CR. And I also used your methodology of negating the statements. And I kind of combined the both, kind of remembered the pointers that they had given about how to look out for, the general types of wrong answers that they give.
Right.
Out of scope, the shell game, and all of those things. So, and I would also remember your approach of pre-thinking. So both of them I would combine, and I would still do the same thing. The first 5-10, I did not care about time. Earlier, I was actually, for my first attempt, I was actually concentrating a lot on time management, which I feel like I should not have done. I realized that with accuracy, the time actually just drops down by itself. It has to be a byproduct rather than your aim.
Yeah.
So I kind of did that. It has to be a diligent effort. It just doesn't come initially. You will take a lot more time initially, but I realized that that's how it is. So just get over with it and do it. So I did that for CR as well. I would write things down. I would try to find out the assumptions and try to, these are the lines, along these lines I have to think, and I have to eliminate the statements. So kind of did that for the first 10-15 set of questions. Then I started doing the same thing in my mind. Then once I did the 10-15 questions writing down, I would then start with RC as well. But for RC, I'm not an avid reader, so I don't read a lot. The only things that I read are generally the contracts that I've been given in my office to read. So I kind of, and a lot of people told me about the skimming and everything. I just, the initial mock itself, I knew that that's not going to work, because that's how I tried the RC for the first time. And it was really bad. I had to literally go back to read, and I lost a lot of time.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't make sense to skim. So I used your approach where you say that, initially spend 3 to 4 minutes. It doesn't matter if the question takes that much time.
Summarize
the first
the
question would always, yeah. So I would always make a summary of the passages, like each paragraph, or like three to 4 lines, if there's no paragraph, and I would combine that and make sure, okay, I at least get the gist of what is happening.
Right.
And then I would move forward with the statements. So initially, again, it took me a lot of time to, imbibe that into because what happens is, when you're so used to skimming and when you're so used to doing things the opposite way than it should be done, there is a tendency for it to come back to you. True. Like if you stop doing this. So you have to put diligent effort in the start to just do this. So I would do that for my RC as well. And for my RC, I did one more thing. I would always do it at night, like when I'm way too tired to actually be thinking.
Yeah.
One of my peers who had appeared for GMAT earlier, on like 3 years back or something, I contacted him after my first attempt. I was like desperate. I needed some guidance, for personal guidance as well. So I kind of contacted him, and he just told me that's the trick that worked for him in RC. So he was like, just when you're very tired, go through 2-3 RCs. Initially it's going to take you half an hour or something to do. It's okay. You'll reduce your time later, and that's how it is, because at the end of like 59th minute, 60th minute, you're really exhausted. True. And you still get an RC. I always remember most of my this thing is first, the last question would be SC, second last question would be RC, and before that would be CR.
Yeah.
So there is an RC question awaiting you in the end, and you could probably be losing a lot of time if you don't. And I also, earlier on, I would get very afraid of all the economics kind of questions, because and plus all the archaeology history kind of questions as well, because a lot of dates and a lot of
Yeah.
things, and
A lot of
science
details.
is still,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of details. Science is still better for me because I'm used to it.
Yeah.
So I used to get scared of the long sentences, the amount of details and data in it. But then I start of kind of use the master comprehensions concepts and imbibe that, and I would just break it down, just break it down, break it down, break it down, and understand. And then I realized, okay, it's not that difficult. Even if it's not your forte, it's still not that difficult. So that's how I would do for my RC as well. So I built on, started with SC, didn't stop with SC, would continue with SC, built upon with CR, didn't stop CR, continued with my CR, then did this thing. So then by the end, I would just do 2 questions of RC, 3 questions. So it's like 15 days, I would start 15 days I was brushed with all of the things. I had done all these 10 questions and done all the exercises that I needed to do. So I had more time for my quants, because that's actually my problem area. So I didn't focus so much on my this thing. I would just solve 10 questions in a day.
Okay.
That's it. Because I didn't really have a lot of time. I had to concentrate on quants as well. So for my quants, I would use all the webinars that's available on YouTube, because actually your e-GMAT's quant course was a little too slow for me. I didn't have a lot of time to invest. It's good for somebody who's a really beginner, but I wasn't that. I was somewhere in between. And honestly speaking, for me, it was not the concept, rather than it was just more about applying the concept and using an approach to it that made a difference. So I would use the webinars that would give me as to how to solve these types of questions.
Yeah.
Would solve 10-15 questions of OG. I didn't really solve your scholaraniums that much, because they kind of scared me a lot.
I know.
They were way too hard.
They do that with people, and I think you have gone through, I would say, the course as such, just a few modules in the GMAT skill file. So I think, how did you find those files that you did?
The skill files are really good for somebody who's beginner. Like I said, for somebody who is like me, I didn't really need to know what is slope in that much of detail as they had gone through. I think they spent around 3 to 4 minutes just explaining that concept. So for me, personally, it was not required. But as such, I would say that your this thing was good, but the question bank was good. Whatever I used, I used limited amount of it, but it was good. The question bank was really good.
As scary as it was.
Yeah, as scary as it was. That's kind of like I would use OG to just pacify myself after having gone through your e-GMAT. I'm like, I'm not that bad. So
no, I think you did a fair job.
So that's how, but I still think I could have done a little bit better with my quants. I still feel that. Yeah. I wanted a Q50, but unfortunately didn't. But yeah.
Yeah, like anything below Q49 to an engineer kind of hurts, right? And feel like cheated out of your score.
Yeah. Yes. It feels really bad. In fact, I was really ashamed of my first attempt. I really didn't even want to tell anybody that I got a like V38 is something when people heard, like there were a few peers who were giving GMAT at that point, or who had given GMAT before, and they were like, V38 is really good. And I was like, V38 is not that, like, I didn't know that it was that great and it was that difficult for people to get. At that point, like I said, I hadn't structured anything. I hadn't listened to a lot of debriefs, and so I had an idea about GMAT, but it was very it was not from different perspectives.
True.
So I didn't know. I knew that V38, like people get Q50s generally for engineers. I knew that V38 is a little difficult to a lot of people, but whenever I listen to a lot of people, they were like, V38, V40 people do get. So I was not very, I did not think that I did a really good job, but when I got V44, I was like, okay, I did a good job. So that's one thing. But yeah, anyways, with my quants, I did more of OG, and I did another tool. I used another online tool as
Got
well,
it.
and
Got
I
it.
used a lot of GMAT Club. So the last 1 week, I kept it for only for mocks.
Hmm.
So I would do alternate day mocks. So
Got it.
so I would do mock one day, just review, analyze, understand where I'm going wrong. And then I would take all of these questions, paste it on GMAT Club forum, understand how people have solved it, and if
Hmm.
there is an easier way to solve it or something that I've missed out on. So I would just get that feel and then go back and try to solve. So even so, my mocks, I never really crossed 700
Hmm.
with my mocks. Never really did that. I was pretty scared to give this test as well, but I kind of let go of everything on that day. I was like, you know what? Just give your best. Let's see what happens after that.
So what are the
And
last
so,
minute things you did to kind of bump up from what you were scoring to what you actually
yeah.
scored?
So kind of the last 2 days I was just relaxing. Actually, I did not want to give too much emphasis on the mocks that I had given. I was stressed out. I was pretty stressed out, and honestly speaking, I tried to give the last mock. I got so scared that I couldn't give it.
Hmm.
I gave first 5 questions and I knew all of them were wrong, and I was really scared. I just stopped the mock and I got up from there, and my mom was like, calm down, don't do this anymore, just go through whatever you've done. Like, you've given ample amount of time, and it's not like you've done a really bad job or something in your other mocks as well. So just calm down. So on that day, I was the only focus I had was take it at one at a time. Just forget about the structure of GMAT being all this adaptive and all of that.
Yeah.
Just forget about everything. Just take one question at a time, because if you do that right, there's no way you can go back. So
Yeah.
your traditional exams, whatever I've given, I had that flexibility of going back always. All your engineering exams, every test that I've given are mostly paper based,
Yeah.
and you could always go back and just resolve them. But this, you cannot do that. So just forget what you've done, concentrate on the questions that you doing right now, get them right, try to get them right. And if you can't solve them by 30 seconds, or like spend a 30, 50, 40 seconds, you will know by then whether you can solve this question or not.
Yeah.
And if you cannot, just try to make an educated guess. I would not say just simply make a guess. Spend another 30 minutes on understanding how, trying to make a educated guess, and just guess, move on. Because if you don't move on, what happens is you probably you're awaited with good questions at the end, and you're just not able to solve them. That's what
True.
happened to me in the first mock. I kind of solved the last 10 questions in 5 minutes. Guessed everything. I didn't even have time to, make an educated guess. And most of them I saw were like not that difficult. I could have solved them. So it was embarrassing, it was humiliating, and it was bad. But I took that as a learning and kind of applied that in the second attempt, to kind of try to get uh, try to solve within 30 seconds. And if I realize that I'm not able to do this that well, I cannot infer well, or I cannot do the question that
Yeah.
fast, then I would make an educated guess, make a ballpark. Like, you always can have a ballpark value, right?
Hmm.
So just make a guess in that sense and move ahead. So that's what I did for a few questions in the start. I did that. So by the end, I had good time. Maybe that's why I scored a Q47 rather than a 49, or maybe something of that sort. But at least I kind of did push through in that. But I think my V was a lot, even for my mock, my Q was somewhere around 49, 47. It would always dwindle between these two.
Hmm.
It would not be consistent 49 or
Got it.
I guess it just depended on the day that I was doing it.
That's true.
But
That's true.
yeah,
So,
and my B was mostly 38, 39 only. It didn't go actually above 40. Just once it went, and that was a V47. I didn't really understand how that went to that
got it.
level. But then, yeah, so I had a very inconsistent mock values, honestly
Hmm.
speaking. So some days I would be better at B, some days I would be better at Q. Uh,
How
but
did you cope up
I
with that?
guess it's just mostly I kind of know myself well. So the first step to doing all of this is evaluating yourself and
Hmm.
not really relying on others to say, you know, uh, everybody says, quants is easy for an engineer,
Yeah.
verbals is difficult for an engineer. That's broadly true. Not saying no, but it's not always true. So, have an evaluation, self evaluation for yourself, know where you stand. Honest evaluation. It doesn't need to be, it you don't have to show it to anybody else. It's for you. So have an
Yeah.
honest evaluation. For me, I knew that I am not a person who does that well on mocks.
Got it. Got it.
So yeah, it's been the trend for me. My 10th board, I scored a 90, but my prelims were always like 80. So the jump scores are always there for me. So it's been a part of my life all the time. Whether it's my engineering, whether it's my mid scores are never great. My
Hmm.
midterm scores are never great.
Right.
So I guess it's just the push that I get in the end. The that 11th hour feeling that I
True.
have,
True.
that kind of,
True.
I always deliver on time, but never before. So
That's a good parting note as well. As long as you
so
deliver on time, of course, I think
yeah, so
that's commendable. Once again, congratulations on your 730 and for your future
thank you.
endeavors. It
Thank
was a
you. Thank
pleasure
you.
talking to you, and do stay connected.
Yeah, same here. Same here. Pleasure talking to you as well, Dhananjay.